I am the founder, ruler, and dictator of the Republic of Molossia. I was the prime minister, and James was the king. I think he lives in Mexico now or something, but
That's convenient.
it is very convenient.
Hello and welcome back to No Man's Friend. I'm your host, Garrett Vantiemesgrad, and today I have a very special guest. I'm joined by, for the first time, though pretty early in the show's history, the President of a nation, His Excellency, President of the Republic of Molossia, Kevin Baugh. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello. Greetings from Molossia.
Can you tell me, let's just start this off, what is Molossia?
Well, Molossia is what's called a micronation, which is a tiny self-declared country. In our case, because there are many micronations, in our case, we're located fully within the United States inside the U.S. state of Nevada. That's what a micronation is, and that's what Molossia is.
How many micronations are there, and do they range in terms of size and, I guess, acknowledgement from broader nations?
Sure, there are actually hundreds of micronations out there. I think on an average day, I receive contact, via email from probably at least three brand new micronations almost every single day. But for the most part, most micronations don't possess territory. They're mostly just online. Not that's bad. That's how you start. And so Molossia is unique in that we actually have a physical territory that you can actually visit, and a lot of folks do come and visit our nation.
And you said that's in Nevada.
Well,
How does that work?
It's in Nevada. Okay.
Nevada. Sorry, my bad. I'm not used to your customs.
Yes, I know. That's actually a common thing in Nevada is correcting people that mispronounce the name of, Nevada. Yeah, at any rate, no, I mean we just have our own territory, which is actually our own private property that we purchased many years ago, and that is the extent of our nation is land that we actually own. We have 1.3 acres here in northern Nevada, and then we have two 5-acre, I guess, parcels over the border in California. So one in Northern California, one in Southern California. And the three of those are the three provinces that make up Molossia.
And how does it work by governance? I assume you're in control.
I am indeed. In fact, I am the founder, ruler, and dictator of the Republic of Molossia. I am pretty much the entirety of the government with the able assistance of my First Lady. She is my guide and my muse in keeping things going and keeping things interesting in our little country.
And you said you're the dictator, so you don't have elections.
No, we don't have elections. No, and honestly, running a country is primarily a one-man show anyway. Although we do have many citizens, but really, it's not something anybody else wants. Nobody's vying for my job. It's a lot of work.
That would be kind of funny though if you ran an election and lost, and then it's like, well, wait, where do I go?
Yeah, well, the First Lady's mentioned a couple times if I ran elections, she might run against me. You want to do all this? Okay.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, I know because especially you keep hearing news rumors about, maybe they'll put Michelle Obama up for president now, and it's like, well, that's kind of funny that you say your wife might be vying for power behind the scenes.
Yeah. She's already said she's a little younger than me, and so when I go and I'm no longer around to be in charge of Molossia, she's already said she's going to make some changes when I'm gone. But of course I'll be gone, so I won't care. But she wants to change the flag to purple and pink. That's all her. I will probably be turning over in my grave, but that's okay.
Well, you mentioned that you had citizens. How many citizens does your country have, and how do you fit them all in?
Well, okay. Our country actually has a total of 40 citizens, and that includes 4 dogs. That's right, our dogs are citizens. It's good to have dog citizens. They're very loyal, probably more loyal than the human ones. Anyway, but the majority of Molossia citizens don't actually live here on Molossian territory. They're what we call expatriates. They live over the border in the United States. And so but they come back to the country on a very regular basis. We have a lot of holidays and gatherings and so forth like that of the Molossian family, and so anybody that's in the local area comes right back on in to enjoy Molossian culture.
Well, could you give me a bit of an audio tour of what Molossia, what someone might expect when they visit Molossia?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Well, like any country, you're going to start with customs, and that's right there at the border with the U.S. And we usually stamp passports there, and I conduct all tours of the country myself personally, and so I will actually stamp everyone's passport that comes through, and then remind them of a few of our laws and things you can't bring into the country and so forth. And then we take a walk
Like
through the
what?
nation.
Wait, like
Oh,
I'm curious, like what?
well, you can't bring in onions or spinach because I'm the president and I don't like them, so I banned those. No incandescent light bulbs or plastic shopping bags; those are bad for the environment. Let's see what else. No catfish. Catfish are banned, even though we don't have catfish in Molossia. They are banned because Molossia was going to be in a magazine called FHM a few years ago, actually quite a few years ago, but they bumped that article about Molossia in favor of one about guys that catch catfish with their hands. It's called noodling. It's a big thing
Oh,
down there.
what?
Yes, that's a thing. And so when they did that, we banned catfish, and then of course right after that, in a case of karma, FHM magazine went under, and probably because they bumped our article. They should have stayed the course at any rate. And then
Yeah, who was doing editing there and was like, oh, you know what? Let's bump the micronation for catfish. Yeah, no, they deserve to go under. But
oh
okay,
yeah,
so we're in
absolutely,
customs. Is there anything
yeah.
else, or are we moving through?
We're moving on through. We're going to talk a little bit more about. I have a whole I guess, entry area with various photos and things that I will point out, stuff that you might not necessarily see. I mean, that explaining what the flag is, our flag of blue, white, and green stripes, and what that means, and then we'll walk on from there. We have our own phone system here in the Republic of Molossia, and they're actually crank phones, and they're connected throughout the entire country, and so tourists have a great time testing those out and seeing, because the idea is that even though we like to laugh and have a good time here in Molossia, we do consider ourselves to be a functioning sovereign nation, and so we like things to work in our country, and that's why we have our own working phone system. We have solar power for all the lights in Red Square, which is sort of like the heart of the nation, and so on and so forth. We want things to function in Molossia. And then from there, what we'll do is go over. We have a poll, like a direction poll, like the one you see in MASH, the TV show, and that's to all the other micronations that have physical territory that you could actually visit if you're, really really dedicated and have a lot of time and money. And we talk a little bit about our population, which we've already talked about now. And then we go on into Red Square, which is, like I said, sort of the heart of where everything's at in our nation. That's where the Molossia Post Office is, my office is, Bank of Molossia. We'll talk about our money here in a second. That always comes up. And we have our own bar and grill, the Tiki Hut Bar and Grill. And then we also have a little shop, the Molossia Trading Post, where you can buy souvenirs at the end of the tour. And after that,
I
we'll
imagine
walk
that's
all through
the
the rest of the
heart
country.
of the economy.
Yeah, it pretty much is. We have a tourist economy in Molossia. There's no such thing really as a rich micronationalist. It's not one of those. You don't make a lot of money having your own country. I mean, maybe we're just doing it wrong. Some folks do, but micronationalists don't. So, anyway, so after you're done with that, we walk. We have a thing called the Tower of the Winds, which is our big original tourist attraction. Take a big group photo of all of our tourists, our visitors there at that. Visit the Molossia Jail, which is where you go if you bring walruses or catfish or onions or spinach or light bulbs into the country, and also the salt mine,
Well,
which
hold
is
on.
where you go
I
after the
don't
jail.
think you. Sorry to interrupt. I don't think you mentioned walruses when we were at the entry point. Why can't I bring a walrus?
Well, first off, they're rather large. Have you seen them? They're really big. And, no, actually, we were going to be. No, I'm sorry. Back up. We like banning things that are unusual in Molossia. Doing a lot of things that are unusual. Um, And so years ago, there was a cartoon strip called Bloom County, and every Sunday in Bloom County, they would all hang out at this place called the Meadow, and they would have weird different signs. And one time it said "No walruses," and so my number three son and he was my advisor at that time. And he thought that'd be pretty funny, so let's go ahead and add that uh, to the list of things that we are going to ban here in the Republic of Molossia. So it's just something, like I said, we like doing things different. We have our own measurement system here in the Republic of Molossia.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. The basic unit of the measurement system is my hand, and it's called the Norton. Not I'm not called Norton. It's named after Emperor Norton, the Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico, who ruled from San Francisco back in the 1860s and 1870s. And because we consider him to be the first micronationalist, the first guy to declare himself to be in charge of a country that nobody else thinks he's in charge of, uh, we, we have a lot of things here in Molossia named after him, including the aforementioned, measurement system. And let's see what else. We have our own time zone here in Molossia. Our time zone is Molossian Standard Time, which is 39 minutes ahead of Pacific Time or 21 minutes behind Mountain Time, I guess, depending on which way you're facing. And we, again, try to do things that are different and unusual, so it's kind of fun to have our own time zone. Let's see, where were we? Oh, yeah.
I know you also you speak Esperanto, right? Isn't that the
Right.
language?
Yeah, that's our second language here in Molossia, absolutely. And our money is called the Valora, which means valuable in Esperanto. So, and the Valora is actually based not on silver or gold or platinum or something like that. It's actually based on chocolate chip cookie dough. And we are on the cookie dough standard here in the Republic of Molossia. Or as the First Lady likes to say, we're rolling in the dough.
How do you weigh that out? How much cookie dough is worth? How do you know what
Uh,
it's worth?
a standard size tube of cookie dough, which is about yay big. I don't remember how many ounces it is because I can't keep track of that ounces and so forth thing. But the standard size tube of cookie dough costs about 5 Valora, and so that's how we sort of base it. I think right now, um, the Valora is worth about 80 U.S. cents or thereabouts. Maybe not. Prices of food have gone up, so it uh, might be more like 85 or 90 U.S. cents. Anyway, somewhere right around in there.
Wait, so U.S. inflation is good for your dollar?
Yeah, it's making our Valora be more valuable. so, so I'm
Do
glad it's
you
benefiting somebody, huh?
Yeah, I'm curious. Does it possibly get affected by shrinkflation? Then I don't know if cookie dough would be one of the affected products, but that's
That's one
when
of the cool
for the
things about cookie
viewers.
dough. Everybody loves it all the time. It never loses its value. I mean, who doesn't like cookies? Well, weirdos maybe, but I mean,
Yeah, yeah. For the viewers, shrinkflation is when companies make things smaller but keep them the same price. So
oh
I don't
yeah.
know if cookie dough is affected by that, but I would be curious if that ever
I don't
happened to you.
I don't think so. I think the standard size tube of cookie dough is like what is it, like 32 ounces or something like that. I mean, and that's what we base our money on. So I think it's stayed the same size the cookie dough has, but the price has gone up. So that means that the value of our Valora has gone up.
Well, I'm glad that's worked out in your favor.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Probably the only country that has.
Let me ask then, because it seems like you've built this very rich culture and
Right.
all the buildings, all these things that make up the country. Um, how old is your country, and what inspired it? You mentioned an emperor earlier. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Now, Emperor Norton was actually a real guy that lived. Not saying our nation's not real, of course. Is actually a real guy who lived in San Francisco and declared himself to be the Emperor of the U.S. We just consider him to be an inspiration because he was kind of like the first person to ever do that. I mean, the U.S. was his micronation, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but anyway. No, Molossia was originally founded on 26 May of 1977, so I think we are now 47 years old, something like that. Back then, it was called the Grand Republic of Vuldstein. That was the original name of the country. My friend James and I, we saw this old movie called The Mouse That Roared with Peter Sellers. It's from 1960, and we were really, but that wasn't that long ago in 1977. Anyway, we were really struck by the imagination and creativity of that movie, which is about a tiny European country that invades the U.S. planning on losing a war with the U.S., because that usually benefits countries that lose wars with the U.S. Instead, they actually capture a very powerful little tiny atomic bomb and become the most powerful country on Earth. And we thought that was just like a clever idea. And so we were inspired to start our own country. And that was Molossia back then. James moved on to other things, but I stayed with the idea of having my own country. And when I obtained property here in Northern Nevada in 1998, this became the home to Molossia, as it was renamed. And we've been going strong ever since.
Well, going back to its founding, what were you doing before that? Were you maybe
Well,
the ruler of a province or a governor somewhere?
there was
Usually, there's a
no
stepping stone.
Not really. There was no real nation. I mean, have always had a very active imagination. So I was always designing towns and cities and so forth like that, just on paper because you didn't have computers back then, and yeah, I think it was sort of like a natural step to go ahead and start my own country, and yeah, just kind of went from there. I was only 15 too, so I mean,
Oh
it's
wow. Yeah.
not a lot of previous history when you're 15. So
Fair enough. And
yeah.
you said it when it was founded, you had what position, and the co-founder had what
I was the
position?
prime minister and James was the king. And I guess
Oh, okay.
technically sort of still the king, but now we're a republic. He moved on to other things, like I said, and I think he lives in Mexico now or something. But at any rate,
That's
that's
convenient.
yeah, it is very convenient.
Yeah. He
Well,
just sort of disappeared.
it has, and that's strange. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but anyway, no.
Disappeared in Mexico. That's a classic. What if he came back? Would you have a challenged rule, or would you just let him move
Well,
back onto
actually,
the land?
before he went to Mexico, we were in contact back and forth for quite a bit, and he was always fascinated because by then Molossia had achieved a certain amount of notoriety, and no, he never had a desire to come back and be the king. It wasn't really his thing. He was my friend, but it was really mostly my thing. He sort of how friends kind of go along with whatever you're into, kind of thing. So
Hmm.
I don't think he was always very much into airplanes. That was his big hobby. And so I don't know what he's doing now, but we'd love to see him. That'd be fantastic. Come popping on
Yeah.
back. That'd be quite the thing.
And forgive my lack of math ability. How old is the country?
47 years.
47 years. You should get him back at the 50th. That would be
Yeah, yeah,
wild.
it's worth a try. Absolutely. I'll see. I have actually tried to find him, through that ubiquitous search engine known as Facebook, but there's a lot of Jameses out there, so
Yeah, that's.
kind of hard to weed through.
I guess you could always mount an expedition to Mexico.
It does not sound like a terrible idea, especially in wintertime. Um, when it's when it's snowy and cold here, we'll go someplace nice and warm.
Yeah. Well, I think actually I kind of stumbled into a segue. You have mounted expeditions, scientific and geological, right, within your country?
Yeah,
Can you tell
absolutely.
me about those? Tell me about the programs that operate.
Sure, absolutely. We have a bunch of different programs. Probably the most notable is the Molossian Navy. We don't have an Air Force or an Army here in Molossia, but we do have a Navy. And it seems
Do you have
appropriate to have that in the middle of the
do you
desert.
have water?
No, we don't have any water. Is that required?
I
No.
guess not. Yeah, that's fair. I guess not.
So our Navy actually consists exclusively of inflatable kayaks. And we take these inflatable kayaks to lakes over the border in the U.S., primarily Lake Tahoe, which is about 35 miles west of here. Really, really beautiful mountain lake. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of it. But at any rate, that's it's probably the number one location that we deploy our Navy to. In fact, we just took it out weekend before last because we have I guess, an unmanned submersible, a little ROV that we just obtained for the Navy to explore what's going on beneath the waters, and it's super cool. A lot of fun. It's kind of like a drone for underwater, and so we had a really good time with the taking the Navy out and deploying that ROV for the first time. And like you said, we scientific exploration to see what goes on beneath the waves. Um, we have also there's a couple other lakes, and we've even taken the Navy to the Pacific Ocean one time. Although kayaks in the ocean are not really the greatest companions, but we always try. So anyway,
What was
so
your
that's your
what
thing.
have been some of your discoveries in the scientific endeavors?
Our biggest scientific endeavor is there has been for the longest time a rumor or a legend of a sea monster in Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe is the second deepest lake in North America, and so who knows what goes on way down in there in the depths, and it's very very far down in there, and so we perpetually go up to Lake Tahoe and we look for Tahoe Tessie, who is the fabled sea monster of Lake Tahoe. No evidence yet, but we're still looking. Now we have this cool ROV, so we can explore even deeper. It goes down like 500 feet, so who knows? We might find Tahoe Tessie eventually. You just
And would the
eat
plan be to maybe photograph it or like hunt it for food or?
no, just photograph it. Yeah, absolutely. No, we're not like
Okay,
that.
peaceful.
Gracious.
Well,
Totally
I
extreme.
asked because I know you're still at war with East Germany, so I
True.
didn't know. In your, you say you're a dictator. Usually they're fairly violent, so I'm trying to gauge where
Well,
we're
yeah,
at.
that's mostly to political opponents. Not
Hmm.
to legendary sea monsters, but I mean, because they're hard to catch anyway. But yes, we are in fact at war with East Germany. But to finish up, we'll talk about that in a second. Uh, but to finish up, we also have a volcanological
Oh,
society, I
okay.
guess, and where we basically hunt down volcanoes. And in fact, I think it was earlier this year, January, I think, we did a snowshoe expedition up to Mount Lassen, which is a volcano, an active volcano, about 2 hours northwest of here, of Molossia, over the border in the U.S. It last erupted a little over 100 years ago. And anyway, so we did a volcanological expedition in the middle of winter up there. That was quite enjoyable. You just learning about what makes the planet tick. At some point, we'll
How active is it, and would it be potentially a threat to Molossia if it went off?
not to Molossia. It's about 2 hours away. So I think anybody that lives right around there might be in a potential disaster zone if it decided to erupt. But there's a lot of heat there. There's boiling pools, no geysers, but there's lots of boiling pools and so forth. So it still has a magma pocket underneath it that could possibly cause it to erupt. 100 years ago is nothing in geological terms. So something to keep an eye on. Yeah, in fact, that whole area there, basically Central California all the way up into Oregon and so forth, a lot of volcanic activity up there. That's where Mount St. Helens is, way up there on the Oregon Washington border. So you just
Okay.
gotta keep an eye on these things.
So you're exploring volcanology. You're exploring the depths of lakes. Is there
Yes.
anything else, or anything on your land within your province that's interesting scientifically?
I mean, not necessarily. It's kind of small, but we do keep track of our flora and fauna that we have here. We have a lot of desert dwellers that live about half of the country here. The portion in northern Nevada is still wild, and so we'll be visited by coyotes and obviously rattlesnakes and tarantulas and all the things that you think of that traipse through a desert. They certainly traipse through here. And then of course our national animal is the wild horse or Mustang, and they come through and visit Molossia all the time.
Oh, that's
Especially if
cool.
there's a promise of food. They're here, and they are very, very capable at sniffing out food. So anything they got into, what was it? Our chicken. We have chickens here in Molossia. It's part of our sustainability project to provide make our own food, and they got into the chicken food about 6 months ago or so, and basically destroyed the container that it was in. So it's like, all right, you
And they
guys.
weren't banned from Molossia after that.
No, they're a national animal. I mean, I encouraged them to leave, and they left. They're not that aggressive, but they were definitely aggressive toward the chicken food.
Oh,
So,
for sure. I do love the image of the president of a nation shooing away a horse.
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they had to go. I mean, eventually, so, and they did. The problem is that they're very large and they're very destructive when they get startled, and so we try to shoo them away gently. So
So I know that because I was looking at the map of your country, there is one part of your land that's designated as a battleground, and maybe that'll bring us
right.
back into the era of the war topics. But what is the battleground?
Well, we actually had a war about 18 years ago. Wow, that is a long time. Didn't even think about that. About 18 years ago, back in 2006, we had a war with the other micronation of another micronation. It was Mustachistan, and they basically claimed our territory, and so we had to go to war to fend them off. But the backstory of that was um, micronations, especially younger, newer micronations, they really enjoy declaring war on each other. It's like a thing with young, I guess, males that they feel the need to do this, and but it's not real. Obviously, I've been in a real war, and there's no death and destruction in a micronational war. So basically, micronational war doesn't exist. Except, what if it did? what would it look like if there was a micronation literally right next door, and they went to war with us and so forth. And so I basically built an entire war around that idea just to see what it looks like. The actual Sultan of Mustachistan is my friend, a friend of mine. So that was sort of a character he sort of played just to play out this what would a war look like thing. Gosh, that was a long time ago. That's surprising. Anyway, but it was kind of a lot of fun, if you can say wars are fun. So and it was educational. And yeah, the battlegrounds are about maybe 2 miles away over the border in the U.S. There's an area there where there's a small waterfall, and the battlegrounds are right down in that area where we fought back and forth using muskets. Because that's pretty much all the weapons we have here in Molossia.
Then how does East Germany come into the picture?
All right, so the East German War does require a little bit of knowledge of what East Germany was, because younger folks don't have a recollection that there was a time when Germany was divided in two, actually 2/3 and 1/3, and the eastern third was actually a communist country, as was most of Eastern Europe, Romania and Hungary and so forth like that. And in the 1980s, I was stationed with the United States Army in what was then West Germany, and I was still Prime Minister of Molossia back when it was known as Vuldstein. And as armies do, they tend to wake you up in the middle of the night. I don't know why all wars seem to start in the middle of the night, but they seem to think so. And so, having been woken up one too many times, I declared war on the nearest East Bloc country, which was East Germany. And then I forgot all about that war declaration for about 20 something years until I rediscovered it in the archives of the Ministry of the Closet. And I gave you a little laugh there because by then, it was the mid tens, and East Germany's long gone, right? Well, it turns out that, in fact, nope, it's not long gone, because even though East and West Germany unified in 1991, way back in 1973, Fidel Castro of Cuba gave a tiny island off the coast of Cuba to East Germany, and it became East German territory. And when East and West Germany unified, that was not addressed in the Unification Treaty, so that remains East German territory. It is, however, uninhabited, and so there's no one with whom to arrange peace after all these many decades of being at war. I think it started back, in 1983. And so, as such, we remain at war with an uninhabited island off the coast of Cuba, probably forever.
So I know you sell war bonds to help
We
with
do.
this war effort.
Yes.
Um, what does that go towards? Is it like building up the navy in case you might need to go out
Yes,
there?
absolutely. You never know. I mean, 100%. I mean, that's a long paddle and an inflatable kayak, but we have a pretty stalwart navy. If need be, we're gonna take that war home. But for right now, things are fairly peaceful on all fronts, and having a war also gives us sort of a perpetual arch enemy, kind of like the U.S. and the Soviet Union. So
I
so
see. So it's more of a Cold War.
it is kind of a cold war right now. Yes. So far, it hasn't been any shooting. I'm sure there's no one to shoot at. So from our towards them, from us, there's no one to shoot at. Like, it's just a bunch of marine iguanas, and they don't care. So anyway,
Yeah. So wait, so you said that nobody inhabits that island, and
right?
Cuba hasn't reclaimed it?
No, it's part of Cuba, but it's just one. They have
Oh,
a
okay.
zillion islands off the coast off their coast, and tons of islands. But there's, I mean, it's just like basically a fancy sandbar. There's not much to it, and which is probably one of the reasons that Castro gave it away. He's like, well, if these Germans come all the way on down here, to claim their land, then they can have it.
Yeah.
Whatever. so, so
Okay.
I think maybe like day trippers go out there from the mainland, because it's basically a really really long beach and so forth, and there might be a little cabana there selling ice cream or something. That's about it. But yeah, no, it's not inhabited. It's not valuable land by any means. It's like a barrier island.
Yeah. Well, I was asking because I do know that there's in the micronation community there are a bunch of people that claim lands that other nations haven't. So like
Yeah,
sometimes there's little spaces between borders. I know I
yeah,
forget the name, but there's one in Africa.
yeah.
And
The one in Africa is, wait a minute, it'll come to me. Bir Tawil, Birtawil, and it's just because between Sudan and Egypt, there's two chunks of land, and they don't want to give up one to keep the other. So they won't. They've never settled their boundary dispute. The one that Bir Tawil is just useless. There's no water. There's no trees. There's no nothing. They can't do anything with it. But there's another piece of land that is on the Red Sea. Is it the Red Sea? I think. And that actually has a port city. So if they give up, well, if one of them gives up that, then they and keeps the worthless land, then they're losing out, and so nobody wants to lose out, and so this thing just stays in limbo forever. And that's one. There's an enormous chunk of Antarctica that has not been claimed by nations for obvious reasons. You should really bundle up to live there. You can't grow corn or raise sheep or anything. And let's see what else.
I do have a question about that real quick because I know that you've said you have solar panels, so you seem to care about conservation and the environment. Probably that extends to climate change.
Yeah, absolutely.
I imagine with the recycling efforts.
Yeah, we are very.
But why though? Because if you could melt Antarctica, there's land under there, isn't there?
Yeah, but in the process,
Molossia could really settle.
well, but you'd raise raise the sea level. The Antarctic ice sheet's like 2 miles thick, and that's a considerable amount of water. So you'd raise the sea level so much that it would drown most major cities are unless you're a landlocked country, are very close to the ocean or actually on the ocean. I mean, if you got rid of all that ice in the Antarctic, you'd lose New York, you'd lose Philly, you'd lose all of Florida, most of Louisiana, all that stuff would be gone. So yeah, no,
You're a very kind dictator.
well, I mean, yeah, and also I think it would still end up being cold. So,
Oh, yeah. All right, fair enough.
I don't like.
I
The
mean,
cold.
there's a reason you are where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And that is also the reason that we are sensitive to the environment. Molossia is a desert nation. We don't actually have any water in the nation. We have it under the nation, way down, below us. There's an aquifer, but it's important to not make things worse. But the summers keep getting hotter, and so I mean, I guess whatever small efforts we're making, there needs to be a bigger movement to try and slow down climate change, but might be too late. Anyway, hopefully we can.
It's nice to know Molossia cares and they're trying to make a difference with what they can do. Do you have access to your aquifer? Is that something that you use?
Yeah, our well goes and that's all the water in Molossia comes from that aquifer, way down
That's
there.
fantastic.
Like 350 feet down below us, so 100 meters.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I thought of another. It's not quite the same as disputed land or unclaimed land. It's Sealand, not the
Oh yeah.
not the one people would think of, but that's just like a military installation that's out that was built somewhere it shouldn't have been, like in international waters, and now there's people
Well,
living there.
I mean, it was built where it was supposed to. At the time that it was built during World War II, and it was an anti-aircraft tower, basically a very large platform, probably, I don't know, maybe a couple tennis courts long, something along that line. Anyway, but yeah, it was a World War II anti-aircraft platform, and so it was where it was supposed to be. There were actually many of them, probably maybe 10 or so, and a whole different community of these things. But what happened was in the 1960s, um, there was a big pirate radio movement in Britain. So basically, you had the BBC that played all the boring music, but if you wanted to listen to that, old-fashioned rock and roll, you had to listen to pirate radio, which was outside territorial waters. And so a guy named Roy Bates moved into this platform called Ruff's Tower, which was outside territorial waters. He got bored with pirate radio pretty quick. It doesn't sound very exciting, and so instead he decided to start his own country called Sealand, and he could do that for a while until eventually Britain extended their territorial waters. Pretty much everyone did, and now I think it's like 10 or 15 miles, something like that, off the coast. And Sealand is now solidly inside the realm of the UK. But
Don't they still
uh,
operate though? I thought they had
they do.
Prince.
Yeah, Prince Michael is now the prince. Prince Roy died about 5 or 6, 10 years ago, something like that. Um, but their big claim to fame was that, I mean, of course, no one actually lived on the tower except for Prince Roy and his wife occasionally. But they had a lot of Sealand slash whatever citizens. So Sealand US or Sealand British or Sealand, in this example, Sealand German citizens. And so some Sealand slash German citizens came in back in the late 70s, I think it was. And the idea was they were overthrowing the principality and making it a republic. So they threw off the caretaker and they took over the platform. Well, apparently
This
Prince Roy
was this was a news story, right? This was
it was a big
it
deal.
was a
It was
big
a big
coup.
deal. Yeah, it was. It was a coup, and Prince Roy and Prince Michael apparently rappelled out of a helicopter, and came down and kicked all those German guys out, German Sealand guys out, but kept one to try him for treason, symbolically try him for treason because he was also a Sealand citizen. Well, the German government got wind of this, and they complained to the British government, and the British government's like, well, actually, that's outside our territorial waters, so you have to deal with them directly. So the German government had to deal directly with Sealand to arrange the release of this Sealand German citizen, and so that kind of gave them a little bit of de facto recognition as a micronation. That's never been done by anybody else, and I think that's pretty dramatic way of going about it. But
That's
still
why
to this
I
day,
have two. I have two thoughts on that because
sure.
one is kind of another nation, but I don't want. But I feel like that'll probably take us another direction. You say de facto
Mhm.
um, acknowledgement. Why do you say that?
Well, that means in fact, like in real life, like they had to acknowledge that Sealand was something in order for the ambassador to go out there and arrange for the release of this guy from from the platform out there in the middle of the ocean. The alternative would be, I think it's pronounced de jure, which means legal acknowledgement of the existence of a micronation, and that has never happened. That would be in the case of, say, for example, the U.S. recognizing the sovereignty of Molossia. But countries don't do that because if they did that, they'd be basically saying, yes, you can take a piece of my country and just go. It's okay. Nobody does that. So
Mm.
that's why no micronation has received actual legal recognition as being sovereign. I mean, we all make efforts. We certainly have here in Molossia, but hasn't worked out for anybody yet. So,
Yeah. Well, okay, so that's perfect. That because the other point I wanted to make was Slab City in California.
mhm.
It doesn't. Have you heard of it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've been right by there.
Yeah, I don't think it's considered. There's no one there that considers itself a country, but they do have a restaurant, a trading post,
Oh yeah.
citizens, and I don't know the story perfectly, but it is a result of the government kind of messing up. I thought like there
Yeah,
was
it was
a
originally
thing.
a Marine. It was a Marine Corps base back in the day, and then they just stopped using it because they didn't need to have a Marine Corps base in the middle of the Salton Sea Basin down there in California, and so they just left it. And over time, people have moved in, but a lot of that is actually snowbirds that go down there. People that are fleeing the cold weather in northern portions of the U.S. They go there because it's nice and cozy in the wintertime down there is actually pretty damn hot. But um, in the summertime, it clears out. In the summertime, you only have a handful of residents because it's blazing hot there, like 100, 120, 130 degrees.
Yeah,
I don't think they've ever
yeah, I
actually.
visited there once, and they were telling me about that. They said 115, 120
Yeah,
degrees,
yeah,
but they said it got
it's
down to two people once. Was one of their
yeah,
worst summers.
yeah. Because well, there's no like real water source there. There's a canal that runs by, and so you're like tapping into somebody's drainage ditch to get your water and everything. And so if it gets a little if you're there for an extended period of time, I guess living gets to be a little, a little rough around the edges. But that whole area down in that area is there's like another city. It's all along the Salton Sea, which is this very very saline lake that was created by accident back in the 1910s. Basically, the
By
Colorado
man.
flooded and created this lake, but it's poisoned because a lot of agricultural runoff runs in there, so nothing can live in this lake. But there's still communities around the edge of it, and it just smells so bad. But I mean, it's definitely unusual folks that live there. Yes,
Yeah, Bombay Beach.
Bombay Beach.
So it has the history of having like the Rat Pack would go hang out
Oh
there.
yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
when we were there, there were bones. The whole
Oh yeah,
coast of
fish
it
bones
was
all
like
along the
fish
way. I didn't know you'd
bones.
been there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's pretty amazing. But they have a lot of like little art things, and that's the cool thing about like that in Slab Cities. They have all these like art displays that they've sort of built, and they're kind of like Burning Man, but doesn't go away. So
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting though because when we went to Slab City, we had to go through a U.S. Border crossing, and it was I think because like Mexico's on the other side of it, and so
right,
they
right,
probably have people trying to get in, but they didn't put it. So we had to still in the U.S. We never left the U.S. We had to go
right.
through the border patrol,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
then when we got there, and I don't know how true this is, but the locals were telling us that they're by technicality can't be removed or governed. So there's also a lot of people who are there illegally or who would be arrested if they left. And
I
I
don't
wonder if you knew about that.
necessarily. I don't know that it's necessarily true as much as it. I mean, governments primarily function by not doing anything until they have to, and so
Mm,
they sort of leave these guys. I mean, literally, that's exactly how governments work. They don't do anything until they have to, and so I'm pretty sure they just leave these guys alone. They don't want to mess with them, and I have heard that the Slab City guys can get pretty militant if they're messed with. The ones that stay there full time.
yeah, I heard that as well. There was an area right in between this art museum called Dots,
Hmm.
and then the trading post, and there was like a 20-foot space that they were like, "Do not go through there." It's like, well, what do you mean? It's like a 20-foot walk from here to. It's like, do not walk through there. That's where the bad ones are,
Yeah.
like the more gang-like ones.
More gang like. Yeah, absolutely. Because they are. It's
Yeah.
out in the middle of nowhere. You've been there, so you know it's out in the middle of nowhere. So
Mm-hmm.
long way from anything. But
Well,
anyway,
yeah, I'm happy to. I'm excited to hear that you know about all these because I think like I'm trying to get a grasp of your passion for this, considering you probably run one of the longest standing micronations.
yes, actually, Molossia has been around longer than most. I think there's a couple in Europe that have been around a little bit longer. I'm not sure if they're like Sealand, of course, because they've been around since the late '60s. But there's differing levels of activity for micronations, and Molossia is a little more hyperactive. We're constantly doing something with our country, and a lot of these folks they're just content just to coast and just let it. I have the country good enough now. Buy my stamps or my passport or whatever, and
Yeah,
yeah,
run a print shop.
yeah, exactly, yes.
No, I love your website, and I'll just say to the viewers, we'll put a link in the description. It is almost like a video game how fun it is to go through your website and look at
Oh,
all
yeah.
the information you have. You've got years of speeches that you can read through. You have a radio show.
We
Can
do.
you
We
tell
have
me
a
kind of
radio.
about how the website comes together with all these different aspects?
Yep, we have radio. We have a monthly newsletter. Both those come out at the beginning of the month every month, and then we have our own little like online movie theater, which is basically just links to our movies, which are actually on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and search Molossia, you're going to see a ton of our own movies, which are fairly short, minute or two, three or four, something like that. But you'll also see a lot of movies, videos, whatever it's called, that folks have made when they've come and visited Molossia, and they're usually pretty good. Folks mostly stay on track and don't get too much wrong. They say our name right and everything. That's always helpful.
So that kind of makes me think too. You described your flag earlier, but you didn't tell me why how you came to the uniform you're wearing. What do all the things represent?
Oh well, I mean, I am a dictator, and as a dictator, you have to
Right.
have some kind of cool uniform. This sort of the idea was that when Molossia switched from being a kingdom to the republic that it is right now, I really thought long and hard. There's a lot of dukes and kings and queens and emperors and so forth in the micronational world, and I didn't want to be one of those. And so I chose being a military dictator, and also it's a little bit of satire because the United States was so very, very fond of dictatorships, especially Central and South America and Caribbean and so forth, during the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Anything that was opposed to communism was probably okay, no matter how bad it really was. And so being a dictator, or something like this, it kind of a little bit of satire against not against, but I mean, on the U.S. for their dictator addiction that they used to have. That's a little bit dated now because communism, especially the Soviet Union, long gone. But yeah, for a long time there, it didn't matter as long as you were opposed to communism. It didn't matter how bad you were. The U.S. did not care. Throw money at
Yeah,
you.
that's true. And the more you go down that rabbit hole, the more you'll find.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
So Molossia was communist for a bit, right?
Yeah, for about 9 months or so. That's when we first developed our online, presence with a website and everything, and it was really super easy to grab that all the communist pictures and everything because you can just like sort of slap your own name on top of that, and you don't have to create your own graphics, because it's already all out there. It saves a
Yeah.
lot of work. But the
So you
reality,
really did follow like the China model of like ripping off.
oh yeah, it was big. Absolutely, it was never anything serious like that. we're not all about the communism thing here in Molossia. But that went away quickly. Not that we were even attached to it that much, but the U.S. is very anti-communist. Most everybody and anybody that might be in a position of authority. So we didn't want to have that, that label slapped on us and then have to deal with all the negative press and so forth. I guarantee you, we wouldn't be where we are right now as far as popularity as a nation if we had continued that. There probably would have been.
You might have gotten invites to college campuses a little bit more.
Yeah,
to
maybe.
be the proof it works.
But that's about the extent of it. So, going to have the locals come up the driveway with their shotguns. No, we don't need
Yes, that kind of brings us closer to modern day, but I don't want to get too modern day just yet. You were invaded once, and I don't know if this counts as a war, but you were invaded by, and they re-established a country on your land, did they not?
Yeah. Yes, they did.
Can you
Kickassia.
tell me about this incident?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, it wasn't. I mean, we call it an invasion because it makes for good press and so forth like that. But essentially, it was these guys online, and they are a bunch of video game and movie reviewers from a website called That Guy with the Glasses, and they
And Channel Awesome as well. It's
there you
the
go.
Nostalgia Critic.
That's it, right? The Nostalgia Critic. Once a year, they would gather. I don't think they do it anymore. They would gather somewhere and they would make a movie because most of their crew was all over the world. They weren't right there where he was. I think he was in the Chicago area, and at any rate, so they would gather someplace and make a movie, and we were their second anniversary movie. And they came in and they kicked me out as the leader and created their own government with him in charge, and then they decided that running a country was hard, and it's actually a pretty hilarious movie. We end up seeing it about once a year because it's become attached to Molossia as part of our culture now. So anyway, but yeah, it wasn't really like a real invasion. They were here, but really it was just staged for the movie.
So says the victor.
Yes, of course, absolutely. Well, we kicked him out, and apparently I can zap in and out and have a lightsaber too, or something. I don't know. So whatever it looks like in the movie, special.
That's
effects.
exactly how it happened. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's real.
It's real. Oh yeah. I guess so.
But all right, so maybe that was more of a cinematic outing. There was also even more recently, more of a documentary outing. That was from a channel called Yes Theory.
Yeah, Yes Theory was like 3 years ago, I think they were something like that.
Yeah.
Was it?
How was that? Were you aware of who they were before they came or reached out?
I'm never aware of that kind of stuff. But the first lady, she's like I said, a little younger and a lot more aware than I am. And I'm like, who? What? I don't know. Okay, come on in. Let's do the thing. And that was fantastic. I mentioned that our currency is cookie dough. It's not cookie dough. It's based on cookie dough. And they showed up with like 20 or 30 tubes of cookie dough in a big cooler. Gave us the cooler too. And
oh wow,
yeah, they really loaded us up with cookie dough. I don't know. I think it was a lot. I mean, it took quite a while to eat all that. But anyway, so,
I guess I didn't think about that. You eat your Federal Reserve?
We do eat our Federal Reserve. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you don't eat it because it's going to go bad, so someone's got to do it. It's a sacrifice that we're willing to make. It really is. So, anyway, in fact, on Saturday, day before yesterday, we had a tour, and a gentleman brought in homemade cookie dough, and so that is it's his own thing. It's a hobby of his. We actually have tourists bring cookie dough almost every single time we have a tour. We have a tour once a month, April through October, and almost every tour somebody brings cookie dough or other gifts. And so this gentleman brought us some homemade cookie dough. So we're going to bust into that and see how that works out.
Yeah. So that brings us right up to to the tours and everything. I want to know about that. Like, how does the word get out? Obviously, I know about you. How did you build the name of Molossia? And you said how often you do the tours. But really, I also want to know, and I'm asking a lot of questions at once, I know, but I also want to know about the broader micronation community from there.
Okay, well, talking about the tours, I have no idea. I'm assuming that folks find us through our website, through our social media. We have pretty active social media, but they find us, and also the Nevada tourism folks. They consider Molossia to be one of the tourist attractions of the state of Nevada, and so they will sometimes direct folks to come visit us.
Do they get federal funding?
Who? Those guys?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know.
Oh, because I'm wondering if that would be a technicality that they're acknowledging you.
That's a good point. Yeah,
That
it's
might.
a definitely informal acknowledgement, and we do actually once a year we see most of the state leadership of Nevada. We see the governor and their senators and their Congress folks and everything like that. There's a thing in Carson City, which is the state capital, called the Nevada Day Parade, and we're in the Nevada Day Parade every single year. We have been for since 2007, and during the course of that parade, most of those dignitaries are hanging around, and so we go mingle with them and see them. So they all know what Molossia is. They've all heard of us, and I guess the height of it though was a recognition, if you want to call it that, was when President Obama sent us a Christmas card, and that was pretty.
Really?
Yeah.
And I imagine you still have that.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's hanging on the wall here in Government House. Absolutely. Yeah. we send Christmas cards out to the governor and the president, whomever they might be, every single year, and that's the only time we ever got anything back, and we got it back addressed directly to me. So instead of just my first name and last name, it was actually to President Baugh, and so that was kind of like a formal recognition. And anyway, but so yeah, uh, the local folks are aware that we exist as a nation. Now, talking about other micronations, um, there are hundreds of them at any given time, and probably maybe 300, maybe more micronations. Again, most of them are online. You can't really visit them in person. There are a few that you can visit, like Sealand. We talked about that. If you're really dedicated, it's kind of pricey to go to Sealand because you have to hire a boat to go out there and so forth. But um, there are two micronations that are fairly close to us. And when I say fairly close, it's like, I don't know, out west close, not like Connecticut to, New York close or something like that. And so it's about 4 hours to each one of them. Uh, yeah, about 4 hours to each one of them. One's Slojamistan, which is down outside of San Diego. You can actually go visit that nation. There's right off the road, so it's very easy to get to if you go east from San Diego. And the other one is called Zakistan, which is located in way far remote northwest Utah, way out in the middle of nowhere. It was many, many long dirt roads to get to that place. I was very shocked that they themselves found their own country because it's so big. But anyway, there are other micronations you can visit pretty much all over the world. So,
You
and
don't always have to visit the nation, though. You guys do conventions, right? Or
we
I don't know
do.
if you'd call it a convention. Would you call it a summit?
No, actually, it's a convention. It really is.
All
Because
right.
there's no policies discussed or anything like that. No, it's just a meeting of micronations. It's called Microcon, and it happens every 2 years on odd years. And so we had one last year, in 23. We had one, actually two. We had one in Chicago, then a European version in Belgium. And then we're going to have another. The next one's going to take place in Montreal in 2025, in June 2025. And it's just fun to get together with the leaders and I guess citizens of other micronations that represent there at Microcon, and just sort of kind of like almost like an exchange of ideas. But it's just really neat to see what other people think a micronation or a nation should be. We have our own way, but there's others. The young lady from Obsidia, and her entire nation is a rock that she carries around in a box. So that's the whole country, about this big. And so you can literally touch the highest point on her country. There it is. And her idea is that countries don't need to have borders. They're about people. They're about cultures, and less about actual physical, territory and so forth like that. So anyway, going back to Microcon, it's just neat to get together and meet these young micronationalists and their ideas, what makes a country, and then exchange ideas and so forth like that. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Well, you talk about ideas, and then that kind of makes me wonder why a nation, because a lot of people find interesting hobbies and creative hobbies, and there's no shade here. I love what you do, but I'm curious what brings you into that thought, and then clearly so many other people, and I like that you talk about the exchange of ideas, like what is a country. So
Mhm.
does it stem from that?
Yes, actually for us, and I can't speak for everyone, but for us, it actually really does stem from that. What makes a country? Countries are complicated things. There's a lot of layers, like onions, and or parfait, either way. Anyway, and so it's fun to explore and see what you can do next with that idea of having a country. Where are you going to take it? Where are you going to go with it? And we explore that pretty much every single day. Where are we going to go with our country? What are we going to do? I mean, is it going to be environmental stuff? Are we going to do, science surveys? Are we going to do, build some infrastructure here in the nation, like we did with the bank and the post office and all that? And what do you do with your own, your own finances and your own currency and so forth, and just all the different things that go into making a country. And we have that, right here in Molossia, and we're continually seeking to see where we can go with it. And the sky's kind of the limit when it comes to people, and also when it comes to countries, and countries are made up of people.
What would you say is your most inspiring message to people who might stumble upon Molossia? What would you want them to take away?
I think probably um, you can do it too. You can create your own country. You can start your own country. It's starting's not hard. Keeping it going can be hard. Keeping it active, keeping it busy, and taking it wherever you're going to take it can be hard. But use your imagination, your creativity, and start your own country. Absolutely. Um, why not? It's a lot of fun, and it's challenging. It can be challenging, putting it together and keeping it going. But yeah, that's probably it right there. You can do it too. You can start your own country, and we help new micronationalists all the time, and we give them ideas because we've got our 47 years of doing this, so we've got a lot of experience, on how we made our money, and where do the medals come from, and where does the uniform come from, and how do you make passports, and should you make passports, and on and on and on, just about anything you can think of. We probably have done it at one time or another, or at least thought about it, and so we're here to help, and kind of give you ideas, and let's see what you can do with your own country.
I actually imagine you just made me think of it just the way you were talking about that with younger people. That'd probably be a very good way to teach kids and anybody really about how countries operate and get them to ask those questions too. Why
Absolutely.
do we have passports? What is the purpose of these things that we all take for granted?
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. We've had some micronationalists who started out young, as most micronationalists do in their teens and so forth, and they have gone on as adults to function to be in politics in their own well, I guess, nation around their micronation, if you will, local politics and so forth like that. So it's sort of like spawned that in them to go ahead and go next level beyond your micronation, and be involved in that. And I'm not saying that politics is good or bad, but it does teach a little bit about how governments work, and how people work, and what you can do.
Is that something you would ever consider doing? Expanding your power by taking part in a foreign nation's
No,
power?
that's no.
No.
No, I don't need their headaches. I really, really, really do. I think I'm too old for that. No, no, nope, nope,
Yeah,
nope,
but
nope.
you've already got the presence. You're in the parade. The populace knows you. That would be
Okay,
hilarious if you really ran.
yeah, but no. I mean, it's especially if it was in this area here. This is a funky, weird kind of area that I don't think I would even have a chance. And all I would do is sort of, I don't know, cast a little shadow upon what we're doing here in Molossia. We don't need any like negativity. We're having a good time with our country, so we're just fine right where we are. We don't need to take it any further.
I think you could go for governor, and then as soon as you become governor, make your land officially a micronation, and then just resign.
Hey, that's not a bad idea, actually. I don't think I have the financial backing. It's very expensive to run for office in the U.S., and you can't
You
pay
have.
for it with cookie dough. So,
Oh, all right. I was gonna say. I mean, maybe invite Yes Theory back, see if they
all
bring
right,
you stock.
thanks, guys. Now I
Yeah,
can run for office. I got all this cookie
yeah.
dough. Hey.
Is there any exchange rate between Valor and USD?
I mean, 80
You said it was
cents.
about 80 cents.
Yeah,
Yeah,
80,
but
yeah, probably more now. Probably more like 90, because I think the cost of cookie dough has gone up. So, yeah,
do you
something like
find any goodwill in your local area? Like if you were to try and pay with Valor at a local place?
that. It's Valora, by the way. And
Valora, my bad. I'm so
yeah,
sorry.
and actually, yes, there is a saloon in the town of Dayton, which is the nearest town to Molossia, and it's called the Odeon Saloon. We have been there several times and given talks about Molossia. They have like an assembly room type thing, and they also, well, they will theoretically accept our currency. So if you were to get our currency from here or online. You can buy it online. Um, and then go on down there to the Odeon Saloon. Theoretically, they will accept our currency, and you could buy something from them, whatever they've got. Our signature drink is called the Molossalini, and that's basically it's pineapple juice with Sprite or something like Sprite and grenadine and some fruit like pineapple and strawberries and so forth. And they actually serve that at the Odeon Saloon. If you want the I guess amped up version, it's a really good drink to add rum to. So either way, but we have to have both because we have a lot of Molossian kids can't be drinking rum. So anyway, so yeah, you can maybe use your Valora that you get from here and go on down to the Odeon, and they will probably exchange it for a Molossalini. So I guess we never tried
I
it, but
think that makes the whole thing worth it 100%. Everything else is icing on the cake. That's great. But actually, I think there's something I forgot to ask, and maybe this is a good ending point since we are coming up on our time. I don't know if we actually explained why it's called Molossia.
Actually, Molossia, the name Molossia has gone through a few backstories, if you will. But the most convenient one right now it is a I guess adaptation or corruption, if you will, of the Hawaiian word maluhia, which means peace or harmony. And we're all about that. Harmony is actually the name of this province that most activity in Molossia takes place. So yeah, that's what it is.
All right.
Yeah,
Your Excellency, President Kevin Baugh, thank you so much for gracing me with your presence today. I really appreciate it. This time flew. This was a great interview.
absolutely. It has been my pleasure.
I am declaring war against you. My new nation is called Vantiemesgrad.
That's a
Uh,
lot.
just so you know.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do exactly what I do. Hang on, let me push a button here. I'm going to do exactly what I do with everybody that declares war on us, and I'm going to ignore you. So
Mm.
enjoy your time.
Well, I this is why I asked all these questions. Now I know everything. I know I could. I see. My original thought was I should invade via the sea, but there isn't one. So
You try, go for it. I mean, you're going to bring a lot of ocean with you to do that.
yes,
Yeah.
you
Anyway.
might see one day a Volkswagen bus rolling up on your property. That might be me.
All right. No, that's cool. Absolutely. Actually, we welcome visitors to Molossia. I do need to say that. So if you've got your folks that are listening in, we have tours once a month, April through October. We don't do tours in the wintertime. It's just too cold and yucky out. And we welcome visitors. Our tours, about 40 people or so show up just about every month. We have about 200 visitors a year come to Molossia. And as I mentioned earlier, take you on a tour, show you everything that there is in the country, tell you all the stories, and send you on your way. All happy that you visited the world's smallest sovereign republic.
And once again, for the viewers, we'll have links in the description. I'll also link to your YouTube channel. Yeah, thank you for coming on once again.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.